Hi, my name is Joselyn Spence, and I am the Director of Mental Health and Wellness for the National Benevolent Association of the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ. Today, I am honored to bring you a mental health spotlight interview on the Well-Watered Soul with its founder, Debbie Ott, and Reverend Greg Ott. The Well-Watered Soul Incorporated is a 501c3 corporation committed to helping people achieve good mental health across the United States through offering mental health triage for individuals until they are able to be seen by a clinical mental health professional. Their purpose is to serve low-income and socially marginalized people or anyone suffering from mental health hardships with a unique advocacy model that matches certified and experienced coaches and counselors with clients virtually to enhance wellness in both mind and spirit. And these services are free of charge to the clients. Reverend Greg is an ordained disciples minister and pastor in the Virginia region, and Debbie, the founder of Well-Watered Soul, has recently begun a new call towards commissioned minister in the Virginia region of the disciples. We hope that this interview informs and inspires you towards how you too can help create communities of compassion and care around mental health and wellness. We are so grateful to hear and to elevate the great work that disciples are doing in mental health across this country. And we hope that you enjoyed this video.
All right, welcome everyone to our interview here with Pastor Greg and Debbie Ott. And we are going to be talking about the well-watered soul. So I would like to invite you both to just introduce yourselves, share a little bit about who you are and what you are doing.
Well, my name is Debbie Ott. I am the CEO of the Well-Watered Soul. I am a certified Christian life coach, as well as a certified mental health coach, and just recently added student pastor to the list of things that I am passionate about. But was my vision that birthed the Well-Watered Soul. What's brought us here today.
That's right. Greg Ott, and I am a minister, ordained minister in Disciples Church. And actually, Debbie and I started this together. I mean, her vision and then my background in business, and we thought of this idea and put it into fruition, actually. So we are passionate. It was during the COVID and the pandemic that we took the time when we were all locked down to kind of figure out what we're going to do during that time instead of just, because church was closed, everything's closed, and Debbie took her classes, and then I took some class, and we started seeing those who needed help through the pandemic and everything. And that's kind of how we got started.
Yeah. Which was, I think the start of the pandemic was a huge time where people were thinking about what are some things that I'm interested in, that I want to do, what are some dreams that I want to bring into fruition, as well as recognizing the big need in our communities around support for mental health. Those conversations coming up more and more and more. So you all have started to mention how Well-Watered Soul came into fruition. Can you talk a little bit more about that start of the process? I heard you mention taking classes and putting a plan together, and the vision that you had. If you could share a little bit more about that.
When I first went to school to become a Christian life coach, one thing that really jumped out at me was the necessity, really, of everybody having access to a coach, to have that accountability partner, to have that person that's going to walk beside you to bring out the absolute best that's within you. And the other thing that I learned as I was learning how important it is to have a coach is I learned that it being such a valuable resource, but it's a very expensive resource to access. And I was writing actually a proposal for a housing unit in offering coaches to their residents to be able to step out of that safety net of housing and move into their own space, conquering their fears and moving forward. And it really was in the writing of that proposal that the idea of the well-watered soul was birthed, to make sure that regardless of finances, coaching and counseling be available.
Yeah. Oh, that access to care, to support, to coaches is so big. Yeah. Pastor Greg, anything that you might want to share about that starting point for you all too?
Well, also during that time and right before, I mean, because we started having office hours at the church. I mean, like so many other pastors, but we weren't fully open, you know what I mean, as far as Sunday and things. The people who came through the building, who knocked on the doors, were on the streets or just in temporary housing. And I could they came in and asked for prayer, and they were depression, anxiety, not know what they would do next. Food banks were closed. I mean, it was, you know, these first couple months was pretty crazy. And so when I would talk to them and bring them in, you know, I'd come home and tell Debbie, I say, you know, I had so-and-so there today, and this person needs coaching, needs counseling. And, you know, I was able to talk to them for, you know, 45 minutes to an hour, and then they're gone, and then they don't come back again, you know. So there needed to be, you know, our conversation was, you know, somehow we got to reach these people and be able to walk with them through this process, have them be held accountable to come back, you know. I mean, and it was, and that again, that kind of helped the whole process say, okay, this is something we need. And, you know, I looked online, and I looked on, I looked at resources, and everybody was talking about it, but no one was doing anything about it. I mean, they want to send you a brochure about teaching, and you know, we want to educate you on, they want to do a lot of education. Not that that's wrong, but that in itself doesn't help someone who's in need. So I said, you know, we need a grassroots group who can do this. And pastors are there, but not as many people come into, you know, churches anymore. Even if they, you know, to get that kind of help that they used to be able to get as far as spiritual and mental health. Even if, you know, even for us to refer them, I mean, it's just, it was a very interesting time for me, because I was seeing more people who were not of the congregation, but they came because the congregation wasn't there. If that makes any kind of sense, you know, it was a safe place to come, and they knew there wasn't going to be anybody else there. And so we kind of merged the two experiences together.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. And what a blessing to, as you just mentioned, people coming because the congregation was there, and to think about these alternative ways that, you know, we're utilizing our congregational space, that people in the community are seeing you as a space for care, a space where they can come that is safe. So that is awesome.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit more now about what the well-watered soul is and how this process works of people connecting with you and receiving from you?
Our purpose statement is to offer coaching and counseling free of charge for those that can't access those resources through traditional methods. What we have found is there's a lot of ways that people can't access those resources, and it's not just insurance. It may be they don't have a vehicle. They may have insurance, but they don't have a ride to the office. There may be the stigma attached to getting help. That is what keeps them from accessing those resources. There's just the more we engage people, the more ways we find the hindrance to them, getting help. So what happens with the Well-Watered Soul is that the client makes initial contact with us, and they have my personal cell phone number. They call, we have a brief conversation, and depending on what their needs are, I choose either the coach or the counselor that will walk with them. We are set up to walk with the client for 12 weeks. What we have found is that when someone is met in the very beginning of their crisis, when they make that initial phone call and I say, it's going to be okay, we are going to walk beside you, there are just tears of relief. You can hear it in their voice, where they are just relieved to know that they are not alone in whatever their crisis is. So is my job, I partner them with their advocate that's going to walk with them. And they would, like I said, they walk with them for 12 weeks. And what we have found is, because we are there at the very beginning of the crisis, there's actually very few of the clients that we serve that need to move forward to a licensed clinician. We call what we do, we call it mental health triage. We are getting them stable, and we are getting them the tools that they need to walk forward in the journey that they are on. We also, although it's not what we really designed it to be, we are able to extend those services longer than 12 weeks if need be. But we've truly only had one situation where a client needed their counselor longer than 12 weeks. And one thing that I have found personally with the clients that I work with is, when they're hitting that 10 or 11 week mark, I don't have to say we're going to be terminating our contract. It just naturally happens. They feel like they're in this healthy place to move on.
Yeah.
And with Debbie doing all the assessments, the initial assessment, and she uses her schooling that, for the assessment, and we've also have access to the Mental Health America, which also has resources assessment online. Then Debbie's able to match with the counselor or coach. And because we keep saying that, we're calling them mental health advocates. So that way I'll just use that from here on out, because it's like sounds like we're repeating. But with mental health advocates, everybody has our strength. We all have our strength. As pastors, we all have our strength. As counselors, you have your strength. That doesn't mean you can't take care of everyone, but if you have your strength, those are who she tries to connect with. So when we covenant with our counselors and our coaches, we ask them, what do you prefer? Like, we have an addiction coach, we have abuse coaches, we have grief coaches, hospice. We have a counselor that is very passionate working with children. So we do the whole gamut. But that way she can match them, that person. And one of the things that the Wellwater Soul is able to do thus far, because things can change, but we are able to connect someone in crisis with a mental health advocate within 30 hours. And usually it's within 12. So far it's been with 12. We say we can do it within 24, 30 hours, but it's been within 12 hours every time. As a matter of fact, we had one not too long, about 3 this summer, and she was in crisis. Debbie assessed her. We have a covenant that we sign that says you're going to work as hard as your coach, as your mental coach, as your advocate, because otherwise we're just doing the circle thing and using people's money who donated money to go nowhere. And that's, of course, not what we do. That's the business side of it, right? And she was on the phone with her counselor within 4 hours.
Wow.
So, that is a area that has just been missing. And so far we've been able to do that since we started seeing clients. So,
yeah. And that is one of the things. There was a mental health crisis prior to going into COVID. Of course, COVID exacerbated all of that.
Yeah.
And we're now hearing it can be anywhere from a 3 to 6 month wait to get in with a licensed clinician. And when someone is in crisis, they can't wait 3 to 6 months to have somebody partner with them and walk beside them.
Yeah. I love that aspect of how you named it as mental health triage, that we have our advocates, excuse me, we have our advocates here who can be with you very quickly, get you stable. And what I'm hearing too around that aspect is really, for most people who are in a very challenging place, they just need to know that they're not alone.
Right.
Yeah.
They just need to know that somebody is going to be here. I love how you all talk about walking with you. We're here to walk with you over these next couple of weeks. You need more support or care, we can figure out how to get that done. But let's start here today with where you are in this moment. Yeah, that's wonderful. And, with the crisis of not having enough therapists and agencies available for people to just kind of walk right in and get the services that they need, we do need to have an expansion of what we see our mental health services being, and more community. I think Pastor Greg, you said earlier, grassroots, like people coming up out of the community to be a support. But could you all share a little bit more about the advocates and the process of bringing advocates in? I know you've mentioned pastors, you've mentioned counselors. If you could talk a little bit more about what these people, what are they doing? What are their sorts of backgrounds? Because I know you do have counselors. So just to make that clear to people who might be listening, you do have counselors, you do have coaches. and pastors. So yeah, if you could tell a little bit more about.
So the coaches that we are bringing on all have their private coaching practice, but they also see their coaching as a ministry. So they are brought in, and we are helping them meet the ministry piece of the work and their passion. I will say the coaches that we have brought on have graduated from the same coaching school that I have graduated from. So that's how we are embracing our coaches. Our counselors that we are using are either bivocational or retired pastors, because what we have found, particularly with retired pastors, is they still have that passion to serve people. And that's one of the real struggles for them with retiring, being a pastor. They are not able to serve. So we offer them that opportunity to still be active in serving people in need. And the model that we really use with both of our coaches and counselors is everyone is brought on as a independent contractor. They're 1099. We are really embracing people that want to work part-time. And again, that comes from my history. I'm a stay-at-home grandmother. I have a precious little 4-year-old girl that I have been her daycare provider since she was 5 weeks old. And so that really limited what I could do, what part-time job I could have. So we offer our coaches and counselors part-time employment where they can set their own schedule and they can work around their free time. And we do limit the number of clients that they can see to 5 clients per week. So this is definitely does not move into a full-time position for any of them, but just a part-time where they can help people as a ministry.
Yeah. So, I mean, you got the ministry piece. So again, it goes back to what your gifts are. Not all ministers like to do counseling, but there are ministers who do, and so we find that to be a good resource. But during the pandemic, you had people that had to quit their job because their children were homeschooled. So you got social workers, you got psychiatrists, you got counselors from school counselors. You have the list goes on. And the more I'm out in the community, I hear more and more. I spoke to a person today who's a social worker, got her, she's has her master's in social work, and she had to come home, take care of 2 children. And she's just now getting back in the workforce. She said, I wish I had known you were here, 3 months ago, because I may not have come back, because she still has the 2 children. It's just that now they're back in school, right? So, I also think we're feeling, I think that's a whole nother branch of this that's not really, that maybe we don't talk enough about. But like, I'm getting ready to go to another regional assembly next month to try and get some pastors or retired pastors who still want to, kind of do some work. And, because if we can help one person, right, that's what we're trying to do. And we plan, our whole goal. So everyone, excuse me, I'll back up. So our advocates are certified or there's documentation that says that they have. And of course, we provide insurance because we're in Zoom virtual. The insurance is not, we don't have to insurance for a building. Our insurance is for what gets said, what happens during the conversation. If you were one of our counselors, you have home insurance from your home to use your computer. So that's how that also helps with our budget and expenses. Does that make sense? So we do have, we do make sure that everybody is certified, and, we will never, well, I shouldn't say never, right? But we are not in plans of having people who would be able to administer medicine, all that. That's when we partner and help them walk to the next level.
Which leads me to, one of my other questions. But before I get to that, I just want to say, I love that aspect of the work that you all are doing, and how you're seeing this as not just being able to help people who are in crisis, but offering an opportunity for people who may be retired, who may be in a different space in their work, as counselors, as pastors, as coaches, who they want an opportunity to help people, but they're trying to figure out, okay, how can I do that? And really being able to see this as a ministry space for them. But it is also you all ministering to them by giving them that space, which I think is really beautiful. So as we talk about, the process of how they move through, and the thought, I know you all mentioned that very few people actually get to the full 12 weeks or need to go beyond that. But any thoughts that you might be able to share around, people who may need more assistance clinically, what that would look like for them?
I actually have a therapist that I work closely with. If I think that a client may need to move forward, I just recently spoke to her, say, I have a client, this is the issue. Is there someone you can refer us to? She's really my referral person that I go to. I trust her judgment, and she helps me with finding that right person to further send the client on to. And we are prepared in some situations, specifically this one client I was calling to ask about. We are prepared to have the counselor go on those first couple of sessions with that client. If we are referring them out, the counselor is prepared to go to those sessions and walk with that client into the newest part of their journey, so that they don't do that alone. Interesting thing, we actually became part of the therapist referral network. Because she said, oftentimes I have clients that we can't service for insurance purposes or whatever, that I need a referral to send them. Can you be part of our network for referring back? So that was really pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And needed.
So there's a lot of we keep building our network, actually, with the hospitals, with the universities, with the therapists and psychiatrists, and we even are making some connections with God, I was trying to think, some of the addiction support groups. And so we've, there's just so many places, and what we've discovered is that it just keeps getting bigger. I mean, we saw this little opportunity and thought, oh, well, we can do that. And it's become unbelievable now. And I don't mean unmanageable, just you just can't even, you go, is this the United States? I mean, you know what I'm saying? So it's been surprising.
Yeah. And as you talk about the connections in the community, the people that you're partnering with, the way that this is growing, can you share, especially as being pastor and student pastor, how you see this work intersecting with the church? How might churches think about their own mental health ministries or organizations, or partnering with someone who is doing this same sort of model in the community?
Yeah, the way I'm approach it is there's 3 opportunities for a church to get involved, and based on the church's mission statement, right, and who they claim they are, depends on which model they may do. Let me tell you, as a brand new 501c3, it is very difficult to get grant money until you have been established for 2 to 3 years on your own. And so startup money, I mean, we actually were incorporated in August, and we didn't see our first client until February because we needed to raise money for insurance and stuff. But it was the help of churches who gave us a donation and said, you know what, we want this to be local. And then, if vacation Bible schools, okay, we're going to, the kids are going to do money. What can they do it for? They can do it for mental health, and find out who they can do it with. Look at the different organizations around town too, like NAMI and other places who give resources, because it is an education. Allow your church space to hold a meeting, or to be a location for them to teach about these different opportunities, because they have the resources, but they don't have a place to come to the public to share those resources. So that's another way to do that. And then, of course, I think that a church, you can get mental health advocates, talk to your congregation. There might be someone in your congregation who fits the bill, not just that we're looking for, to say, you know what, I really do want to help give back, and this is a way to do it. And they get paid. I mean, they're not going to, we do pay all the coaches and counselors. Everybody gets the same, but I think those are the real. Invite us to come talk to your congregation. I mean, there's so many different ways that the church can be used for that. And we don't need to take up a Sunday and come preach. We can come do a CWF, or it's not that anymore. Disciples Women's Fellowship, DW, Disciples Men Fellowship. So there's so many different ways, I think, to do that. And there are, and actually Debbie's looking at another class, and I'll let you talk about that, as far as how to start a mental health ministry. And I mean, she's trying to work on some of those things too, so that we can bring resources. But there's resources out there, and people can even ask us, and we can send them information if it's not in your specific town, because we have found out, because we have advocates and counselors everywhere, and we got some in Massachusetts, we got some in North Carolina, we got some in Pennsylvania. But depending on your town, some of the resources aren't close. It's the next closest town, So
And just hitting on what he said, the fact that we have coaches and counselors in a variety of places means that geographically, we really do not have any boundaries to the communities that we can serve. We may have Well, actually, we have a client in Virginia who meets with a counselor in Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
So I think that's another important aspect
Mhm.
is that we can serve communities all across the country.
That's our
Yeah,
goal.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the coaching opens that up in a way that, some of the more clinical
Yeah.
boundaries, ethics, across
Right.
state lines. Yeah, a different form of being able to be with people.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. And with you, you kind of started to mention this, Pastor Greg, around other how others could start a mental health organization or ministry like this. And you mentioned, Debbie, something that you were looking into and building up those sorts of
Well,
resources.
actually, there is quite a movement um, in building mental health communities within congregations. And there's actually free training that every congregation is open to receive on how to start that ministry. The training comes through Light University, and they will offer scholarships for any congregation that wants to launch this ministry in their church.
And there's other sources out there like Grief Share for grief, and that I actually have that in my church, which has nothing to do with the Well-Watered Soul, but it's a group grief counseling support group. And there's a lot of those out there, but to find the right one, that's the one that I thought was the most the best for what our understanding our theology, because sometimes you can get some theology way out there too. So, you just want to make sure, but there are programs out there, and specifically Grief Share. I just talk about that for 1 second. It is designed to not be led by the clergy. So I'll repeat that because there's clergy listening. Every time there's a program that comes in, right, the clergy's involved. This one is designed to not include the clergy. And what has happened in the church I serve is that the lay leaders that facilitate this have done this for 3 years, and it is their ministry, their passion. I bless them and watch them and support them in a whole different way than it being me, the one in charge. So, in grief, let me tell you, grief comes in all kinds of levels, but just when someone lost a loved one during the pandemic and they didn't bury him till 9 months later, or whatever, that there's a whole, one of the things that we've learned opening this little box is that everybody could have a mental health program, business, whatever, and that's okay, because it's not competition. We're trying to help each other in our neighborhoods and in our families. I don't know any family that I've talked to in the last 2 years that doesn't have someone who has been affected mentally by their job getting lost, whatever, not going to college, not going to school. We have a 4-year-old, a granddaughter. She's in childcare or in preschool. There's a whole generation that for a year didn't see anybody. All of a sudden she's thrown in a group of 15 kids. She's not, and it's you went to the playground. If someone else got to the playground, everybody left because they were worried about COVID. So it's a whole, it's just not the way it used to be. And so, I'm an advocate to tell everybody to do what you can do. We gotta, and I'll get off my soapbox, but I didn't want to just keep talking about it. That's why I said, Debbie, let's just start it. You can't just keep, we can talk it to death, but never do anything, or we can just get out there and start doing it. And that's kind of what we did. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you just touched on, my last question about why this sort of work is important, especially right now. So I do want to open that up to see if there's anything else that you all might want to share about why engaging in this work of mental health care, community mental health care, and getting
Mhm.
these resources out, being advocates to people, why that is so important right now.
Let me start.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things that I've discovered from this, and this is going to sound like I'm old, and you never want to be that old person, right? But even though we're doing it virtually, the person finds out they're not alone. The social skills and the social structures have, for whatever reason, are different. And there's not many ways to connect. It seems like not many positive ways. It's easy to jump on a bandwagon and do something bad, tear down, do whatever, but there's not a lot of positive building going on, it seems like. And mental health is a starting place where I think we can recognize each other's weaknesses and help one another in our struggles. It happens all the time in groups like AA, right? I mean, think about church camp. Let's think of our own structure. Church camp, we bring kids from all different kinds of churches that come together, and they're lifelong friends for the rest of their life. There's not many places anymore in our society that kind of thing happens. And especially if you're in a crisis of some sort, I'm just depressed because of this. I'm anxious because of this. I feel lonely because of this. Both my parents are working, and I have to stay home from school. Stay home to come to school. It's everything that was okay and kind of normal before the pandemic got exploded by the pandemic, in my opinion. So I think it brings community again, which is what we need to do. I think it's a way to bridge community and recognize that we need help. Because if you're in social structures all the time, you can find the people who are hurting, because you're in. When you're not, how do you find that person? I mean, it's just, all the places that gather people are changing. The malls are no longer malls anymore. It's just getting, I mean, if you really look at the bare bones of where we did social things, it's getting more and more challenging, I think.
Yeah.
So.
I think, as I was listening to you, one of the reasons why I think this is so important right now is because we were each created for community. And that is what we lost when COVID happened. We lost community. And I think deep down there's a grief with that loss, but also there's a craving for that community again. And we don't know how to get back to it.
Yeah.
So when we have a client come in and we say, it's okay, I'm going to walk with you, we are beginning to teach them how to create community again. And, we don't have to be perfect at what we do.
Yeah.
We just have to show up and listen non-judgmentally and let them share what they're carrying around. And I truly think that really is the beginning of their healing.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. The beginning of their healing. one last thing that I want to ask, that maybe I should have asked this at the beginning, but well-watered soul, the name, how did you all land on that and what that means for you?
It is truly a God thing. Actually, when I was launching my private practice, I started listing names of what that would be. And the well-watered soul was in that list. And it truly just speaks to me. I mean, that's what it's all about, coming and never thirsting again, to have our soul just constantly refreshed and our thirst quenched. And our logo is a woman standing here, and the water just pouring over her, and you can just see God just washing away. I mean, that's the image that I see, is God just washing away all of the pain and the hurt and the heartache that we carry around with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, the well-watered soul represents a lot deeper than just here and here, and so the name and the image fits what we hope our ministry and our nonprofit is able to do. And again, it's about people and caring for people. That's why we did what we do.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, that is so. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
You're good.
Okay. Well, that is so wonderful. And I love, one thing that I love about the soul part is in the work that you all are doing, is reminding people that our soul is just more than, watering our soul is more than just, okay, come to church on Sunday or read your Bible, but there are so many things holistically that God has for us in order for our souls to be well, which includes our mental health, which includes community being with us. So thank you all for being that example of that for so many people. We will definitely be sure to have all of the contact information for people to be able to reach out to you and connect with you. And as we close up, I'll just ask if there are any last things that we didn't get to, or last comments that you all may want to make.
If anybody's watching and they really feel like, God is laying this on their heart, that they want to start a ministry like that, like this, I will say, one, launching a nonprofit is not for the faint of heart. There's a lot of work that goes into it, but it is so worth the energy that you put into it. And there's so much satisfaction in seeing lives changed. Now, we can't go out and we can't save the world. And we always say that one starfish, the people that we are working with, they may not be huge numbers, what we've been able to do so far, but we've made a difference in those people's lives. And that's really, that's important. That's really what's important.
Yeah.
But if somebody feels God laying that on their heart, please contact Greg and I. Will be happy to share with them the knowledge that we have gained in this process.
And I'd only reach out to our clergy folks who, due to pandemic, may have been made the church numbers may have dwindled. They're there and they're trying to figure out, well, what can I do? Again, reach out to us, because there's a lot of things we can do. I don't, my fear is that clergy and leaders in the church, we've relied on numbers for so long, sitting in the pews, that that's not the only work we do. And I would just encourage them to find out what that spark is. It may not be mental health, it may be something else, but just realize that there's still a lot we can do in our communities and our society as pastors that may be different than what we learned, because I didn't learn anything about the pandemic when I was in seminary. I don't know if you did.
No, I did not.
It's like, okay, now what? Everyone goes back to seminary, right? But I mean, so I just want people to have, I just want clergy and my colleagues to have hope, and see what's new, think outside the box, because the people are still the same. The issues are still the same. We just got to do them differently, right? So
yeah.
that's just my
well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for
Thank
this opportunity.
You are welcome. You all have shared such rich information, and I am absolutely sure that people will be reaching out to you all on a variety of levels for what you shared today. So thank you again for sharing with us, and thank you to all who have watched this interview, and we will connect you with the necessary resources that we have available. Thank you all for watching.